Hello, Alden.
Hello, how are you?
Baruch Hashem, how are you?
Good,
We're
good.
getting closer. We're getting closer. Scary part is coming.
Yeah.
Tell me something. Do we send anything to Ernie, like for
What?
Yontif? Do we send anything to Ernie for Yontif from the group? No?
Only good wishes.
Good wishes we can do. Yeah. Oh, like no flowers or anything else?
No.
No. Okay.
Sometimes in the past, in a seal, we gave him a present.
Mm.
I mean, when we finished the shots,
Yes. We're on Sadiq Wolf, 96.
96. We almost finished the,
Almost
oh
finished the
no,
card.
another 20 days to finish this volume.
Why?
Uh,
So it's very important. All
yep.
right. It's called the organization. Anybody else here go to it? Impact?
¿Cómo se llama?
Adam Milstein. It is run by Adam Milstein.
Yeah, I know Adam Milstein.
Yeah. No, I said that I've been going to all of their meetings because they find these small organizations that are startups generally that are trying to help either directly in Eretz Israel or worldwide to bring attention to anti-Semitism and ways to help Israel. And they've been unbelievably impressive. So I was just mentioning one of them about effort to improve education in the Hispanic community through educating the journalists about the Israeli and Jewish side of what's going on in the Middle East. I'll shut up. Let's learn Gemara.
Which Hispanic in America? Hispanic journalists or in
No,
this country?
predominantly Spain and South America. There's 1.7 million Spanish-speaking people, and they're getting severe. I mean, it is such an important issue.
1.7
billion people.
billion.
Because Al Jazeera has a whole division dedicated to passing out all the lies that they can about the Arab world. So it's a critical need. And so far, they came into existence about 3 or 4 years ago, and they've had almost 80 journalists that have gone to Eretz Israel to learn about the history and to learn from the Jewish perspective what all is going on. Anyway, it's amazing what people come. This woman created this whole idea in her kitchen. I find that amazing. I find it incredible how people get inspired to do things. Anyway.
Okay. We are on Sadik Vav 96, Ahmed Aleph. Actually, we left off Sadik Hey on the base on the bottom. Rav Yehuda. Yain animkar b'chanut. Wine that you buy in a store. It's not great wine, but it is wine. So you make the bracha on wine. But Rav Chisda Amar Gabi Chamer Akrim. What about wine that is now turned into vinegar? Lamali. Why would you make a boy Geffen? They're assuming that wine in the stores are not perfect wine. Some of it is turned vinegar. And therefore, according to Rav Chisda, you would make a shahakol. So meisvei. We're gonna ask a kasha Rav Yehuda from a brisa. Alapashi ifsha, bread that is moldy. Ve'alayayin shehikrim, wine that has turned vinegar. Ve'al tafshil sha'avrat suraso, a dish that's been overcooked. So you don't make the bracha that you normally would make. Omer shakol yabedvarim. So this seems to imply that wine that is sold in a store, you shouldn't make a boy pragefer, which is a kasha on Rav Yehuda. Amrav zvid, boy Rav Yehuda bepurtzmat imizdavna karnasa. This is wine that is sold in the corners of the street. This is bad wine. This is like Ripple. And you don't make a boy pragefer. And that's what the Bryce is talking about. But wine that's sold by the storekeeper, that's already better wine. And that would be wine, and you would make a boy pragefer. Rav Yosef, Harav Yehuda, Harav Chizda. So we have two shitas. Rav Yehuda, Rav Chizda, Mar Kiman Sfirale. So Abaya asked Rav Yosef, who do you hold like? Omer Lei, listen, Masnisi Yadan, I know a Baraisa, the Tanya. Haboidek Esachavis. Lios Mavish Aleha Truma Loile. You have a barrel of wine. And you have a lot of wine that you have to give trumas and meisers for. So you're going to designate the wine in this barrel as truma for all the other barrels. And it'll be a running process. That means I know I have 100 barrels, so I'm going to give 1/10 of the barrel for truma. And now you have more, another 10th. It'll continue going. However, you check it later on, nimtzah chometz. All of a sudden, that barrel turned into vinegar. The question is, when did it turn into vinegar? You cannot give truma vinegar on yayin. So the Brisa says, "Kol shloisha yom vaday." For 3 days, it's vaday. Now we don't know what that means yet. Mikan ve'elech safek. After 3 days, it's a safek. So we don't know even what this means. Micah Amar. What does this mean? So January 1st is when he checked, it was good wine, and he started being mafresh truma from the barrel. So the first 3 days since he last checked, the wine is considered vadayayin. So if he was mafresh some truma, it's good truma in the first 3 days. The fact that later on it turns to vinegar, that's okay. If at the time that he gave the truma it was yayin, he fulfilled his din of truma. Now, beyond 3 days, mikan ve'elach safek. It's either yayin or chometz. My taima. Chamra mi'iloi okar. Little bit of chemistry here. Wine ferments from the top down. The first, if you have a barrel of wine, the first part of the wine that will ferment is the top. V'haiti ima v'lo okar. So he tasted it, and and you taste from the top, and it hadn't turned vinegar. So therefore, the first 3 days it's good. And even in Tipsaloim or Basar D'Te'ima Okar, maybe you could say the moment after he tasted it and it was wine, maybe then it was already vinegar. It doesn't happen that fast. Haverechel chala v'tayim chamra. It's still the fragrance would be of vinegar, but its taste would be wine. The kolreichel chala v'tayim chamra chamra. Even if the odor that it gives off tastes like vinegar, but its taste is wine, it's considered wine. And therefore, that's why the truma works. That's the way Rav Yochanan explains. Rav Yeshua ben Levi has a different explanation. That not the 3 days immediately after he checked, kol shloisha yomim ha'achronim, the 3 days before he checked and found that it had turned into vinegar. So vaday chometz. If you checked it on February 1 and now it's vinegar, So it's already had turned vinegar 3 days before. And he holds that even if the odor is chometz, it's vinegar, even though the taste is wine, it's considered vinegar. So if now it's completely vinegar, then 3 days before it already started the process. Now, mikan ula'alan, anytime prior to those 3 days, it would be suffix. Well, we don't know what it was. It might have been wine, might have been vinegar. My type, because this, they learn the chemistry, the opposite. Chamer mitatai okar. The bottom of the barrel turns vinegar first. Ve'emer okar v'lavadaite. So when he checked initially, the bottom already had started turning vinegar, but he didn't know because he was only checking the top. And im tim soloimer miloi okar v'haitima v'lo okar. And if you're going to say that no,
Is he frozen?
No. Oh,
Yeah, he was frozen.
I could see his mouth moving in face, so. Okay,
I lost you guys for a minute. Okay. So, and have a reicha chala b'tamei chana, when the odor is vinegar and the taste is wine, the reicha chala b'tamei chamra is chala, it's considered vinegar. Dromoy, the chachamim in the south, Muslim Mishmei Rav Yeshua ben Levi, a third way, that when we say the 3 first days, Rishonim V'Abeyai, like January 1, he tasted it and it was wine. So until January 3rd, it's also wine. And then the last 3 days, he tasted it February 1 and it's vinegar. The 3 days before is also vinegar. The intervening days, I am tzoim suffix. So hagufa kasha. Well, there's something contradictory. Amrit, you told me the first 3 days is certainly wine. Alma recha chala b'tamei chana chama. When the odor is vinegar and the taste is wine. And then you said, v'hadar amrit, the last 3 days, achronim v'arechometz, alma recha chala b'tamei chana is chala. You can't have it both ways. So the Gemara says, "Kagon di ishtaka chalas sivtika." We're talking about on February 1, when you checked it, it was very, very strong vinegar. The ilav da akar tlasimah, if it hadn't already started fermenting 3 days before, lavim ishtaka chalas, you would never get to this kind of strong vinegar. Kiman poshetle. So how did Abaya resolve this? Pligabar of Meir Rav Chad Amar Rav Yochanan, that it's still wine. You say boy pragefen. The Chadamik Rav Shubin Le.
Here we go again.
My wife has already converted the dining room for Rosh Hashanah. That's normally where I learn. And I'm in the kitchen, and obviously I've got a little issue with the wireless, so I'm gonna come into the,
Again. We lost you.
can you hear me?
Now, yes.
I changed rooms
We
because,
hear you, Ernie. We hear you.
okay, Itmar. Hamoicher choves el chaver vechmitz. You sell a barrel of wine and it turns into vinegar. Amarav, kol shlosh yom rishonim b'shus moicher. The achrayus is on the seller the first 3 days. Because it must have started turning vinegar right after the sale. And he has to give replacement wine to the buyer. Mikan ve'elech, but after 3 days, it's Pershus Lakeach. The buyer assumes responsibility. However, Shmuel Omar, Chamra Akatfa de Me'eri Shavar. Wine is on the shoulders of the person who owns it. And it turns vinegar right away. For example, when you schlep the barrel from one place to another, that also can turn wine into vinegar. And so therefore, Shmuel says, the seller doesn't have responsibility either in the first 3 days. Avad Rav Yosef Uvda. Rav Yosef Paskind about on the Rav B'Shichro regarding beer. But the Kavase de Shmuel B'Charma, but he held like, that means beer that went bad, it's the responsibility of the seller the first 3 days. But regarding wine, no, he held like Shmuel that it's the responsibility of the buyer. But V'Hilchus Kavase de Shmuel, the halacha is like Shmuel. That the responsibility is not on the seller. The moicher is not chayiv. Period. Ton Rabbana. Echad sheichar tmorim. Date beer. Echad sheichar sa'oirim. Beer made out of barley. Echad shimre yayin. This is like sediment of grapes that you added water to it, so that the outflow, the fluid is like a little bit like yayin. You don't make a boy priya eights on it. Like for dates, normally you would make a boy priya eights, but this is now a beverage made when you steep dates and make it into beer. Normally by barley, you would make a boy priya adama. Or boy priya geffen by these wine sediments, but you don't, you say shakel. The sediments that have a flavor of wine, you make a boy priya geffen. That's like us with grape juice. And we paskin that you make a boy priya geffen. Amar Rava, kula. So, excuse me. Rabbi Rav Yosef Tamar Tarvayu ein halacha kacherim. But Amar Rava de kula alma Rama tlasa. If you poured 3 measures of water into the sediment, v'asa arba, and 4 ounces, you put 3 ounces of water, but 4 ounces came out. So you see there's some fluid coming out of the grapes themselves, chamru, it's considered wine. And it's been diluted with water, which is okay. Because Rava l'tamei shama Rava kol chamra shelo dori al chatlas u'may lav chamru. If you don't dilute wine with 3 parts of water, it's not even considered wine. So this meets the criteria very well. Rava continues, Im Rama tosa v'asa tosa. You added 3 ounces of water to this, and when it eventually came out, it was only 3 ounces. Lo klumu. It's clearly not boy priya geffen. It's water that went in, water that came out is shahako. Ki pligi, derama tlasa, v'asa tlasa upalga. You put 3 ounces, 3.5 ounces came out. Rabbanan savri tlasa ayel tlasa nafik. 3 went in, 3 came out, partially palga. Then there was an added half, which came out from this sediment. So palga, b'shisa, palga mayab. If you have a half in 6, right, parts of the water, lo klumu, because it's got to be 1 to 3. We said as the mezika. Otherwise, it wouldn't be considered yayin. So you'd say shahakol. Acherim savra, plus all, you put 3 in, and really trainu paga nothing. 2.5 came out. And a half stayed with the sediment. Pashli kuza. So he has 3.5 ounces of beverage. V'kuza b'trei upalga. And the wine is 2.5. So chamram ayu, so that it is the good dilution. Uviyoyser michdei midoso mi pliki. If what comes out of the sediments, any amount, is more than the water that you put in, even if it's less than that, is there anybody who argues that it's not considered Boy Barakef? And I'll show you that it's considered Boy Barakef and Vat not. And we're going to talk tomorrow about this aspect of if any amount of more fluid comes out of the sediment than what you put in, it would already be considered wine. So tomorrow, the daf is at 5:45 because mincha is already 6:25. So we have to learn 5:45. And the Tzor Bashir will be at 8 o'clock, God willing. Okay, see everybody tomorrow.
Okay, good night.
No.
Shkoyach. Good night.
5:45, right?